Is sugar killing our families is the topic and we're going to talk about today, and it's something that I'm really passionate about getting the message out. We created a cartoon about sugar lurking in products, and we might show that later on today as well. But I thought, right, who's the best people I could get on the show to talk about sugar, where it's hitting, low carb and so on. And there is nobody better than the husband and wife team of Dr. Jen and Dr. David Unwin. They are so up on this topic. They've done so much research in Southport, where they are doctors, that you are going to be fascinated by what you'll learn in today's show. And again, thank you for joining us. We're in day, I don't know, something big number of lockdown, and we will keep these shows going right till we're out of lockdown. Thank you for all your donations also to the Trussell Trust. We've now raised over £20,000 with your support. So thank you very much indeed. And if you are new to the show, the Trussell Trust operates 1,250 food banks across the UK, and now, sadly, more than ever, there is huge demand on our food bank because, well, it's been there for a long time, sadly, but with what's going on with COVID, people losing their jobs, and families that maybe their children were having school meals but now having to find a way to feed them at home, more people than ever are relying on the support of us, yourself, and everybody to put meals on their table. And no children, no families should be going hungry in the UK in this modern time, but sadly they are. And two things we're asking everybody that watch the show: either make a donation to Just Giving or the text number, that's one of them. And then on top of that, we're asking, could you, next time you're in the supermarket, where the collection box is, that cardboard box, the big collection box, could you make a donation of food? And the great news about that is it always then gets distributed in your own community. So it doesn't come back to some central warehouse. It's all sort of put out into your local community. So anything you can do to help, whether it be a financial donation, whether it be financial donation or dropping off the food, that would be absolutely fantastic. Now, let's quickly do some food facts because, in fact, no, let's not do food fact first. Let's do what have you cooked for the first time yesterday. What we're saying is, during lockdown, we're here to inspire you with new food ideas. That's why we're having lots of nutritionists on, lots of chefs on, and that's why also currently at Primal Living's website, we put the entire Primal Gourmet Cookbook loaded up for free, so you can look at all the recipes, all the menus. It's also why virtually daily on YouTube and on Instagram, we're adding new cooking ideas. And we're trying to say, look, use lockdown. Try and take the positive out of it. Try and learn some new recipes, some new food things you haven't cooked before to try and get healthy. And a couple of days ago, was it yesterday? I can't remember. Yesterday or the day before, I did eggs in a different way. And the reason I did it in a different way, we looked and a load of them had gone out of date. We got like 20 eggs that were out of date. So I fried up some mushrooms, I fried up some kale, they were all out of date as well. Fried up some chilies and onions, they were all out of date. It's what I call an SBD meal, a sell-by date meal. So we fried them all up, and then we whisked up these 18, 20 eggs. I've got a huge family, and we made 3 trays of an egg, I mean, what do you call it, tart if you like, and put it in the oven. It was brilliant, absolutely gorgeous. We had it with ham, we had it with some steak, and it was fabulous. So that's what we cooked for the first time yesterday.
Some other photos.
And a lot of other photos. Say good morning, Jack, to everybody. Never see enough of you. You're a bit shy, Jack.
I beg to differ on that fact.
You beg to differ. There's my son, 18-year-old Jack, learning to produce shows and hopefully learning a lot about how to live healthy and happily. And then what did you shout out, Jack?
We have lots of people's photos.
Okay.
So, to begin with, we have Poppy's cognac noodles and bolognese with courgettes, onions, basil, and more.
Wow, very nice.
And then we also have Tara's. She said we are ordering fresh fruit from a local company and enjoying some lovely fruit salads made by our son.
Oh, well done. Keep it local.
Yeah, exactly. Always good to support the local farmers during this time. And then Sally Taylor has made a lockdown salad. She has no greens left until she goes shopping next. And so at 7 o'clock on the plate is homemade sauerkraut.
Nice.
My first try at fermenting delicious. I have another batch started now.
Well done, everybody. That's fantastic. Keep sending us in. Remember, it is a competition. At the end of lockdown, we'll pick our favourite one that you've posted, and you're posting those. I think that's to Primal Living on Facebook. Yes, so Facebook. Put your ideas there. Let us know what you've cooked. And what's great then is at the end of lockdown, we're going to have a prize for the favourite recipe or the favourite photo that we've seen. And also the other competition that we do every day is we give you a food fact. And we say simply write down what the food fact was, go back to all the previous videos, write down just the title of the food facts, and whoever gets the most written down, again, we'll pick a winner. And the winners have prizes. Today's food fact is, why are you laughing, Jack?
Go on, just say what you're going to say.
Okay, today's food fact, my son's laughing for some reason, is chicken. Chicken. Oh, I've spelt it wrong. It's the chick without the C. Okay, well, it's the chicken without the C. Chicken. Chickens are really, really healthy, but here's the key thing. You've got to go organic, yeah? And you've got to go for those that have been bred outdoors, because otherwise it's not fair on the chicken, and also it's not good for the environment, and it's not good for your health. So always go outdoors, always go those that have organic as well, and then it's going to be really good for your health. It's going to be really good for the chicken. That's our biggest source of protein apparently in the UK. Oh my gosh, Jack, not only have I spelt chicken wrong, I've just realised what I've done.
What?
I've just talked about chicken, and our guests today rear their own chickens for eggs. Oh, what have I done? I hope I haven't offended them. Well, we'll soon find out. Oh, there you are, David and Jen. Sorry about that. I've just been talking about why you should eat chicken.
We like chicken. We eat chicken.
Oh, that's all right. Woof.
Yeah.
Tell me, have you still got them?
Well, my son Robert, for the lockdown, bought us a special gift. It's called Sir Lancelot, a magnificent cockerel. And 3 weeks later, we've had a very happy result. So on the same day that Boris Johnson had his, I think that was his 6th child, wasn't it? Sir Lancelot had 7 chicks. So we've got 7 fluffy chicks now, and they're doing really well. So we're hoping to increase our flock. The only thing I'd say, cockerels are very difficult to live with.
Noisy, very early.
Yeah,
at this time of year.
5 o'clock, 4:30 in the morning. We've had to soundproof the hen shed, and you've got to remember to lock them in and shut the door. So it's full of loft insulation. But apart from all that, it's been great fun.
They're lovely, and you can feed them all your out-of-date things out of your fridge as well. Like, if you've got a bit of salad left or little leftover bits off, scrapings off people's plates. It's lovely. There's no waste in the house at all. The chickens will eat. They're omnivores. They'll eat anything, more or less.
That's brilliant. I feed my out-of-date stuff to my children.
Yes. Yeah.
So actually, you've trumped
We've
Boris.
got two this last week as well, 2 pigs and 2 sheep as well. So we've quite a little small holding now.
We've no scraps at all. We've got 2 beautiful little black piglets. But I'll put a photo on Twitter later today.
Oh, that's brilliant. So you've trumped Boris twice in a few weeks. You've had 1 more chick than he's now had children.
Yeah.
But you tell us about COVID, because you've all had COVID and you've got over it much, much quicker than Boris got over it.
Bless you, yeah. Well, 3. So there's 3 of us at home at the moment. We've got our son Edward.
19.
He's 19, and all 3 of us have had COVID. What's interesting was that I nearly missed it. Really, I thought Edward was just being lazy and wouldn't get up and move about. Then when I did his oxygen saturation, it was really low and his pulse was very high. And then over a few days, similar things happened to Jen and I. And yeah, the test was positive. The good news is that we're over it with the other side, and it wasn't that bad.
No, we didn't have a cough at all. The classic symptoms that you're told to look out for. We didn't have a cough. David and I didn't have a temperature. Ed's was really about 1 degree up. He was. It's more. It's a little bit. Our experience was pretty much like altitude sickness, if people have had that, where you just kind of feel a bit weary and you can't really pick your feet up, and you definitely don't feel like going a vigorous run or anything like that.
Everything's
But
an
apart
effort.
from that, I didn't have a symptom as such. A sort of it was just tiring really.
Yeah, I think it was. I mean, Edward was much more exhausted.
And he was the worst of all of us probably.
I think that the hint I'd give is that actually a pulse oximeter, you can get them on Amazon. We could get one actually. It's in my bag. I'll carry on talking while Jen looks in my bag, and we'll show you a pulse oximeter. But we would have missed the diagnosis without the pulse oximeter, because Edward didn't have a significant temperature at any time. And but the pulse oximeter, the oxygen level did drop. This is a pulse oximeter. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Can you see it?
You can actually get them on Amazon for about.
You can get these on
quid,
Amazon, and it's actually, these are what doctors use. So when I'm working in the hot COVID centre, or indeed at the practice, this is what I'm using to find out how are people. So you just put your finger in there like that, turn it on, and in a minute we'll know what my oxygen is. But without this, we wouldn't have known.
And heart rates, we had racing heart.
Yeah, particularly Edward's heart went up to 150, which is so rapid.
Just at rest.
But anyway, we're over it now. And the good thing is, I'm waiting for me to find out. The good thing is, it's unlikely I can give it to anybody else, and it's unlikely I'm going to catch it. So I'm some of the doctors in the practice are jealous of me, because they say, oh, I wish I was the right side of COVID, because we're not waiting for a vaccine now.
So obviously you've been treating patients that have got COVID. We know what happened to Boris, but you've had it and the symptoms were not as severe. Do you put that down to the size of the dose that you had, the viral load? Do you put it down to good luck, or do you put it down to the fact that you are a super healthy family?
Well, it's interesting. There's been one or two scientific studies come out, quite a lot of them from China, but quite an important one came out this week from New York. And the ones in New York, I think they looked at 5,000 people who'd been admitted to hospital with COVID. And the three significant factors that best predicted what happened to those 5,000 people were high blood pressure, obesity, and type 2 diabetes. And obviously we would say that these are factors that your lifestyle makes a big difference. And so we'd like to think that we didn't get it badly, because we've got my diabetes under control, we're not fat, and also my blood pressure used to be high, and that's come down as well. So that's our take on it. That and really, I wouldn't have known. We wouldn't have known we'd had it.
No.
Oh, we've just froze there with David and Jen. Well, we'll try and get them back, because we will get them back. It's going to be a fascinating show today. Good morning to everybody that's watching. In fact, Jack, before we go to a lot of these questions for David and for Jen, shall we play our cartoon out? So based on research that David and his brilliant team of doctors did, I thought, how do I find a way of getting that message across to families? And more importantly, you've got to get the message to the kids as well. So we spent a bit of money, we created this cartoon, and here's the interesting thing. When you see something turn into sugar in this cartoon, that is the actual amount of sugar it converts to, basically the load of glucose on your bloodstream. Have a little look at this as we bring back David and Jen. Oh, sorry, Jack, I've not got a fallback monitor. Looks like we've just got back. We just had a catastrophic internet failure at home. That is the first time that has ever happened. So I apologise to everybody. We have no idea what happened. The internet just went completely like dead. We've gone round, we've replugged all the routers in and unplugged and rebooted, and it's all come back to life. So apologies for being away for so long. Just a quick recap while we get David and Jen back on. And by the way, thank you for so many of you for staying around and being with us there. That was very strange indeed. In fact, while we wait to reconnect to Dave and Jen, let's say hello to some of you. So good morning all, says Jackie. Tracy says, hi Steve, team, David and Jen. Steve, did you finish your 5-day fast? No, I failed. I failed on day 4. A bit like my internet, I just went down for unexplained reasons. But I will be doing another. So I always get to day 4, and I wasn't even hungry. I was just weak-willed, and there was food on the table. My wife had cooked this brilliant soup, and the kids hadn't eaten it all, and I thought, oh, I can't leave it. I can't waste food, so I jumped in. Anyway, that's my excuse. Good morning, everyone. We can't wait to dive deep into the world of food with Dr. Jen and David. And thank you all for being so patient with us there. Anne-Marie says, good morning. A huge thank you for all the positive information and inspiration each day. I've had to reschedule my morning tasks, but hey, I have the time, don't we all at the moment? Jackie says, I couldn't see a food fact on one of the videos. How many are there, Jackie? I think there were 1 or 2 days that we did forget to do it. I apologise. Jackie says, I love the Unwins. They're on it. Yeah, absolutely. Steve Oliver says, I'd love to know where those bananas were grown locally in that fruit salad picture. Steve, stay with the underlying emphasis of it all. Of course, the bananas weren't grown locally, but maybe everything else was sourced locally. But if you do find a way of doing it in the UK, do let me know. Joe says, lots of people talking for the first time today. Great. Joe says, the only thing I have with sugar in it is my tea. How can I give it up? I can't drink tea without sugar. Is there an alternative drink you recommend? Joe, you know what? I was the other way around. I couldn't drink tea at all. I don't like tea and never have liked tea. But everybody kept telling me about the benefits of it. So it was easier for me. I went straight to herbal teas. Now with herbal teas, you don't need anything added. They just taste great. Or you could do what I do most mornings, and I've only started this recently. This is slices of ginger, slices of lemon or lime. I've got lime today. And that's my early morning sort of drink first of all, before I reach my cup of coffee. Now, Jen and David, thank you for being so patient.
We're back on the phone.
How are you? Can you hear me? Because I can't hear you now. We're going to have techno trouble all day today. I can just feel it. Can you check? Say again?
Turn your headset back.
But me?
Yeah.
You know what? I'll probably have to turn them off. Could you hear? Can you hear then, Jack?
I can indeed.
Oh, well, fantastic. Hello, team.
Hi.
Oh, we were running around the house. I mean, just like you chase after your chickens, we were chasing after wires and leads and everything. And we unplugged everything, plugged it all back in, and guess what? It started to work again.
Switch it off and on again.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll have to do another show on sugar.
Yeah. So now, listen, I've got loads of questions to ask you. There's lots of questions coming in, but before I do, when we were off air and we had that chat, you said it's very difficult for doctors, obviously, to talk about their patients without talking about breaking confidentiality. But you said to me, I'm happy to talk about the list of things that have improved in your own family since you've kind of kicked the sugar. Over to you, really. Let's talk. Right. Well, first of all, let's explain what you mean by kicking the sugar and reducing carbs, and then let's dive into those sort of things that it's helped with.
Yeah. So really, gradually throughout our family over the last 7 years, it started really. Jen was the first, and then there was me and Jen, and then gradually there's been more and more of us, and cutting sugar and starchy carbs like bread, pasta, potatoes has spread through Jen and I, our 3 kids.
Cake.
And Kate, we've given Kate,
Okay.
our grandchildren, my mother, my sister, and some nephews and nieces, and some wider family. And just, it was interesting. We made a list about 10 minutes ago, half an hour ago now, of the
Can I just say, we were pretty carby.
As a family, we were, yeah.
Because, you know, my mother before me and myself, and also David's mum, very, very loving of the carbs. And we used to bake, like, we were all good cooks.
Yeah.
So there was, you know, sponge puddings with, I won't, you know, people know.
I think we
banoffee pies,
yeah.
you know, every celebration was a festival of sugar.
Yeah, we'd mixed love as a family. We felt it's loving to make cakes for your family, to do a trifle, and we've come to understand love in a different way. A different way now. Let me just read through my list, because I'm so surprised how many different conditions. So 2 people in the family have had their diabetes put into remission. 6 people have lost significant weight. 1 person has had thyrotoxicosis, was reversed in just a month. Eczema reversed in 1 person. Hay fever got rid of in 2 people. High blood pressure, including coming off treatment, for 2 people.
Some of these are the same people.
Yeah.
We haven't got such an enormous family.
Yeah. Painful joints in 3 people. Snoring, this is an interesting one. Snoring, we can talk about snoring if you want.
Yeah.
Hunger and sugar addiction, gosh, how many is that? About 4 people. Acne, young people. So 2 of the young people have amazing skin now. Acne. Acid reflux requiring Gaviscon and omeprazole, 3 people. Migraine, 1 person, and carpal tunnel syndrome. That's quite a list for just one family. And we're all part of families, and it gives an idea of how much ill health can be reversed by a better lifestyle. I'm amazed when I look at that list. So do you want to talk about any of them?
Yeah, I do. And it's kind of, you know, Tim Noakes talked about that a lot, didn't he, when he lost all his weight, that so many things went away. And I can completely agree straight away. For example, snoring. Yeah. My wife and I quite often would end up in different beds because my snoring was horrendous when I was overweight. Yes. And if anybody snores in the bed now, it's not me.
Yeah. Well, actually, I was a snorer, and Jen used to wake me up to say, "David, you're snoring.
Stop it now."
And you know, lie on your side. And she hasn't done that for years now. What's interesting in the practice, some people get sleep apnea, which is a severe form of snoring, really, where you stop breathing. And I've had a few cases now where I was referring them to the sleep clinic, and the treatment normally for sleep apnea is you have to sleep at night with a machine that sort of pumps air into you. And I think it's 3 patients now never actually needed the CPAP machine, because I got at them with low. They said to me, "Well, it stopped." So I think this snoring thing is significant. And how is either surgery or a CPAP machine the answer to sleep apnea? That's interesting. So yes, snoring, that's been great for both of us.
Yeah.
Is that something to do with reducing the amount of fat in the neck, is it?
Well, I thought so. There was a fascinating thing on the BBC a few months ago talking about the cause of sleep apnea and snoring was actually a fat tongue. Oh, and right. People put on fat in their neck, but also in the tongue. A bit like a fatty liver, you get a fatty tongue. So certainly one of the first things I notice with people who give up starch and sugar is that certainly the face loses weight, and they do lose it off the neck, but it's possible they're losing fat out of their tongue, and it's the tongue, a larger tongue is falling back when you're asleep and interfering with breathing. So snoring, yeah.
So I was going to say that our son Ed, the 19-year-old we mentioned before, we were saying, you know, what was better for you, because he chose to go low carb when he was a teenager, because he was reasonably overweight actually, because of all the lovely puddings I was feeding him. So he mentioned that, but he said really sugar is kind of death by 1,000 cuts, because you eat the cake and you don't, obviously that one piece of cake is doing you some harm, but it's such a tiny amount. It's a bit like people who smoke a cigarette, and and you don't realize it's the accumulation of the kind of small problems like, you know, snoring. You know, that's actually quite bad for your health. You sleep poorly, you know, that's not great, do we? And then, you know, people's blood pressure slowly going up. So they're not big things that you notice. Or like, I had the same as you, Steve. My knees used to hurt when I went up and down stairs. And that means you do less exercise because your knees are hurting, so you don't move around as much. So all of these things influence each other, and they're all tiny accumulations, and you can sort of slip into, like we did, slip into this way of being where, you know, quite a few members of the family are probably a bit overweight or, you know, have high blood pressure, and you just think, oh, that's how it has to be. And it isn't.
Yeah, I think related to that, it comes on so slowly that you just think it's normal or aging. And I think so many of us, if it was poisoning dramatic and you started vomiting, you'd know.
And you wouldn't do it again.
Yeah, for me, it was just a gradual slowing. My waist got larger. I just felt a bit tired. And I thought that was just age and that I should accept it. So many of my patients feel the same.
In the short term, you love it. We love that sweet stuff. It gives you a boost of all the happy hormones. You know, you feel great for about an hour. And, you know, so we kind of keep doing it. And it's also the culture that we live in is incredibly sugar saturated. It's everywhere. It's every celebration. It's in all the adverts. I mean, it's when the scales fall from your eyes, you can't believe, you know, you go in the supermarket and there's like these family bags of crisps and enormous bags of chocolate. And once we're a bit like those people who have given up smoking, who have just become evangelists. David wants to go around the supermarket putting little skulls on all these offers, saying sugar is poison. He keeps threatening to get these stickers.
Let's do it.
I have a fantasy about getting these stickers, like you know, a skull. Around the edge it says sugar is certain death. And then I just feel that you should go around a supermarket putting them on the Krispy Kreme donuts and on because it's a health service.
Like we have, you know, it says that on cigarettes and you know, obesity is and all of these conditions such a major cause of illness.
Let's campaign for that after we've campaigned for getting rid of this.
Yeah, let's do it.
But also I've got a better idea. I want to make you like a lectern. Is that what they call it? You stand behind. What, Jack? A lectern. I want to get you a lectern, and once COVID's over, I want to keep the same black and yellow thing all the way around the outside. I want to say, eat real food, save the NHS, save lives, because that's the thing that's going to cripple the NHS, isn't it? I mean, COVID's been bad. Don't get me wrong; it's been terrible. It's horrendous. But the bigger underlining picture is it is sugar and high processed food, unreal food. That is going to cripple the NHS and is going to kill people. So, you know,
it is already, isn't it? You know, it's already, there's an epidemic of diabetes, Alzheimer's, cancer, heart disease. You know, all of those things are lifestyle.
And all of which is represented in our own family.
Yeah.
When you know, all of our families, just ordinary families. I've got 12 conditions here that we've reversed in just one family. And actually, that kind of thing is represented in my clinical work in the practice, in that gradually I'm learning the snoring is a new one. And eczema is another one that I'm finding, oh, that's another thing. Carpal tunnel syndrome in my mother.
What does that mean, by the way? I don't know what that means.
Carpal tunnel syndrome is, my mother was getting numb fingers because the nerve as it passes through the carpal tunnel in your wrist is squashed a little. And she was waking up every morning with numb fingers.
Wow.
In fact, if she cheats and has an Eccles cake, she still gets it now. So
it's a bit like she's got a policeman. If she has an Eccles cake, and then she struggles to do buttons and so on because her fingers are numb.
Wow.
So that's another condition. I'd say 12 conditions.
Go back to the hay fever one. I think you said 2 people, was it, with hay fever?
Yeah.
Where do you think the link is there? Because that's the one I really can't work the link there.
I think the link is how the immune system is modulated. So various conditions are to do with an overactive immune system. And of course, this is really coming into focus now with COVID, isn't it? Where some of the worst aspects of COVID are to do with your immune system overreacting and starting to attack your own body. So hay fever is a mild one of that, and eczema is another one. And I think aspects to do with sugar, aspects to do with wheat for some people, start up some autoimmune stuff. And particularly, so this one, I'm sure Rob won't mind me mentioning, my son Rob, he used to get very, very severe hay fever. His eyes would swell and stream, and May was always a misery for him. And we used to use eye drops,
nose spray,
nasal spray, and tablets, and even so, couldn't go outside. Whereas now, he and I went to run on Sunday in May. Would have been
the grass,
unthinkable.
Yeah.
And actually, we met while we were running. There's another relative of mine who was socially spacing on a bike, and this other relative was able to be on a bike again with hay fever so much better, and asthma. So yeah, it's to do. It isn't just weight. Some of it's to do with the immune system.
Yeah.
And I bet you if you went back 100 years ago, then if we're saying that a lot of this is to do with too much sugar, well, we know 100 years ago, in fact, in 50 years, we've tripled the amount of sugar we're consuming. In 50 years, we've put on 2.5 stone as adults on average in the UK. And if you go back 100 years, the things we were dying of were things that we caught, a bit like COVID, but it was all TB and things that we caught. I bet you 100 years ago then, diabetes, hay fever, high blood pressure, joint problems, eczema, snoring, acne, acid reflux, migraines, carpal tunnel syndrome, I bet most of these hardly even existed 100 years ago.
Well, even more recently than that. So when I was a child at school, in my school in Rochdale, I don't remember a single child with asthma, not one. I didn't even know what asthma was. I never saw an inhaler. I never met a child with asthma. At that point, there was nobody in our social circle who had diabetes. Nobody, not one person. And then when I came to the practice, my early surgery, so in the 1980s when I started as a young doctor, obesity was quite rare. It was rare, particularly in young people. I only remember there was 2 or 3 really heavy people in the practice, but now I couldn't count how many there are. The people are transformed and changed completely. The surgeries look quite differently. A new thing particularly is, say, people in their early 50s walking with sticks, inflamed and in pain. And I think so much of this is terrible suffering, and suffering I didn't see in the 1980s. And
can I just jump in there, David? Because I think it's important people understand why your positioning is so good compared to maybe many others, is that Southport is the same. You've stayed in the same area, you've been a GP with the same patients, and Southport is one of those areas, correct me if I'm not right or wrong, where you don't have lots of people coming and going. They tend to, it's such a beautiful place. I used to go to Southport every September for a sailing race, and it's such a beautiful place. People tend to grow there, stay there, and don't move out. So you've had the privilege, if that's the right word, of the same patients for a very long time, because you've been doing it quite a long time. So therefore, and also because you are who you are, you've kept data and records for so long, you've built up this picture that I think would be hard to be more accurate, to be quite honest.
No, that's really accurate. So we've got about 9,000 patients. I've got many families where I've looked after 4 generations. So that you're absolutely right. It's people are not moving in and out. They're the same people. So we can't be saying it's genetic that everybody's got diabetes and obesity and high blood pressure and all these things, because you can't change genetically in 35 years. I've watched this happen. And the other thing I'm always told is, well, everybody, they don't move around. People aren't moving around that differently to 30 years ago in Southport. They're absolutely different. And I'm seeing it is getting worse and worse because it's affecting the young people now. So the problems whereas in type 2 diabetes, I never saw anybody. I don't think there wasn't one person under 55 with type 2 diabetes in 1986.
Wow.
Now I've probably, what have we got? Probably 50 or 60 people, and the youngest person is 10 years old.
Oh.
What is the future of that person who's 10 years old? And I really worry that this is becoming normalized, that people who are overweight, we're just saying it's just a bit of chubbiness, it doesn't matter. I think it does matter, and we mustn't sleepwalk into this.
Yeah, and I wrote that in my book because I had somebody say to me, well, if we're saying obesity starts at 30% body fat, and now we're saying 2/3 of the country are overweight, obese, well, let's just move the goalposts. And I'm like, no, that's just accepting defeat.
That would be a terrible thing. And the other thing is the idea of medicating to sort of, I just think all the drugs, so many of the drugs I'm using are just a sticking plaster. If you weigh 20 stone and I give you a drug for this and a drug for that and a drug for the other, are you a well person?
All with side effects.
But if I could support you and help you lose that weight, and then so many of the patients and my relatives have come off drugs, well, people are so proud and they feel so much better. It's really worth trying.
Yeah.
I wish you both were my dad's GP, because my dad's on about 12 medication. He injects himself every day with insulin. And I ask him so many times, what are all these for? He hasn't got a clue. One to counteract the side effect of that, and then now we've got a different side effect, so that counteracts that, and that counteracts that, because nobody's had those 5 ever before. So let's try that. We don't know that's working. Well, let's try that. He has no idea. And I remember the first time I met you as a family, you said to me, in fact, you said you became very disenfranchised with being a doctor many years ago because you just didn't think you could help people with diabetes. There was no answer to it. And in fact, you would actually get other people in your practice to look after people with diabetes because you were just so fed up of not being able to make a real difference. And you say that you have a whole new lease of life now because you can make a difference. And then you said to me, my favorite thing at the moment is de-prescribing medication, showing the lifestyle changes to make, and just watching people get healthier and healthier.
It's just like being a magician. I love it. It makes me so happy. In a good surgery, I might manage to take out 3 drugs that people have been on for years. And I always say angels in heaven are singing every time I de-prescribe. And these are all people who have improved their blood pressure, improved their diabetes. And some of them, I have a few now, who working with me are managing to come off their insulin for type 2 diabetes.
Amazing.
And the people who look healthy now.
Yeah.
So what was so depressing before was I'd add perindopril for blood pressure, I'd add amlodipine, I'd add something else. And the people, nobody looked any better for it. It was so depressing because they didn't look healthy. Whereas now, they're coming in, you can just tell they look shining really. And they're so lively, aren't they? Yeah,
because we run groups, and so sometimes I only see people maybe every 6 weeks or so, but it's just fabulous to see people coming in without their sticks actually. So we've had things like a lady who was in a wheelchair who's now walking around.
Yeah.
People who've been able to give up their sticks, or just look completely transformed really. So people who've lost really a significant amount of weight over some time. And then it's important because we live in this carb centric culture. We keep the groups going so that people feel they're not they're not too unique. They've got people who are doing the same thing for good reason, and they see the results those other people get as well. So we do that. From a social support side, it's really important to keep people motivated and on track, because otherwise their own families sometimes can, or friends can, not kind of wanting to do harm, but they can kind of undermine people's progress.
Absolutely.
Well, an example from our family of that. So my mother is 84, and again, for her, love is a cake, love is biscuits. And in the early days, she kept saying, David, you've gone so thin. You're
Yeah.
looking very thin.
I made you this
And
cake.
I've made it, or for Jen, Jen struggled with her weight for so long, and she'd make you that lemon cheesecake.
I had a favourite lemon and lime cheesecake that she used to make, and
Yeah.
she'd make me this cheesecake. And of course,
every time you take it, they think, oh, you must have enjoyed it, even though
Yes.
you're putting it in the bin when you get home. They just make bigger one and bigger. Now, can I just say to everybody, there are probably 100 people trying to ask questions. I
Right.
promise you I will get to your questions in a moment, but I've got 4 or 5 I'd like to just quickly ask before we turn it over. So I want, first one's not a question, I just want everybody to know that one of the things you've done in your surgery is, unpaid for, the patients don't pay, but once a week you were doing group sessions for many, many years, helping people as a group to understand, because it's not a 5-minute conversation, where those carbs were hiding, and help them as a group to get better. And so much so have you done so well in your surgery, and this is back to my thing about post-COVID, to say, eat real food, save the NHS, save lives. And this isn't some stupid fantasy I've got, because is it not true that you actually sent a cheque back to the Treasury of around £40,000 for unused drugs, because you were treating people, getting them healthy through the sessions that you were running, which were changing lifestyles?
It was more than that. I think it's last year, but we were unable to spend £57,000 of our drug budget. And we're in a recurring way, so every year.
and that's only drugs for diabetes.
No, the 57 was all drugs.
Oh, all drugs.
But for type 2 diabetes, we're spending about £50,000 per year, less than is average for this area.
Wow.
And over the years, we've got data now on 5 years. So we're generally nationally, the number of items being prescribed for diabetes is has gone up by 10%. Whereas at Norwood Avenue, over the same period of time, the number of items we're prescribing has gone down by 5%. So there's now a 15% difference in the items for our practice compared to Norwood. One of the tragedies is the Treasury gets the money and there isn't really an investment in lifestyle medicine. So that I do it because we love it. Yeah. But I wonder, other GPs would say, well, you're a mug because we're doing the work, but we're not paid.
There's no reward.
Yes.
So I would say, and we need to think about this together as a team, but our number one campaign is to get that just completely gone away, because it's killing people. But after that, is the next campaign to campaign to the educators that say in that 5 or 6 years doctors are studying to become a doctor, can we shift at least some of the emphasis onto food and nutrition, so that we start to do, somebody said to me the other day, and I love it, an ounce of prevention is worth a ton of cure. Can we try and change the what's it called? It's not schedule, Jack. What's the word? What do you call it at university?
Curriculum.
It's curriculum.
Thank you. Can we change the curriculum to be
there
more?
Are some young doctors, aren't
there? They're called NutriTank. So they're already a group, and they're on Twitter. These are young doctors saying nutrition is important and it needs to be put on the curriculum.
Great.
And I think particularly for, doctors, all healthcare professions and all people, it's useful to explain physiology in terms of diet. So if you can help people understand that insulin gives you a big belly and fatty liver, and you have more insulin if you have more sugar, these kind of things for all of us are important. Linking nutrition with physiology.
Absolutely. So can I, in a nutshell, before we go to the questions, just give everybody interject as soon as I get it wrong, but when we eat carbohydrates, when we eat sugar, that's one thing. When we eat carbohydrates, they break down into sugar. Too much of that that the liver can't cope with, if we don't use it as energy, the pancreas releases insulin. Insulin grabs that sugar, puts it in our fat stores. And sugar does that, and so does too much carbohydrates. And is it fair to say that many doctors now are talking about this thing called metabolic syndrome, where to a certain degree, that too much insulin can be linked with heart disease, cancer, Alzheimer's, strokes, diabetes, and so on and so forth? Am I okay so far?
I think you're more or less spot on there.
Brilliant.
Yeah, you're more or less spot on.
And
So
then,
I just refine it slightly.
okay.
So insulin pushes sugar out of the bloodstream and into cells. And in many of those cells, it becomes fat. And that is how sugar becomes fat. It's not always fat you've eaten. You can manufacture your own fat in your liver and in your belly, and it's not good for you. And you can manufacture it from sugar.
And because of that fact, and people not realizing what food types turn into sugar, you went away with your colleagues and some brilliant people, and you came up with a chart system to say, did you know that a baked potato did this? Did you know that an orange juice did so on and so forth? And Jack's going to try and pull up one of those charts now. And now, not internationally, countrywide now recognition for the work you've done as a family, as a GP, and your friends, because now it's been adopted by NICE, which is the people that give information to the government. Is that also correct?
Yeah, it's been endorsed by NICE as a useful thing for education to help people understand where does the sugar come from in there. I think there's about 7 of them. Whether Jack's going to...
I don't know which ones he's got. I don't know if he's got my summary of yours or yours. Try and throw one up, Jack, if you can. Oh, that's what one of
summary. Well, that's a good one. That's all right. There we are. Look, yes, people often think that fruit juice is healthy, but actually there's a lot of sugar in it. What have we got? Oh, cornflakes. So that's cornflakes without sugar on it.
And who eats 30 grams?
And
oh my
30
God.
grams.
I would have had about at least twice that.
So a small portion of 30 grams of cornflakes, in terms of what it does to your blood sugar, is the equivalence of 8.4 teaspoons of sugar. So how is that a good breakfast?
Yeah. Well, if you remember back to the Public Health Collaboration Conference last year, when I buried my dad and my son in sugar.
Who could forget?
Who
could forget your poor dad being buried in sugar?
So I had to weigh my son's cornflakes, and he was only 12 at the time, Tom. Was he 13? 13 at the time. And his was 80 grams. So that was 30 grams. His was 80 grams. So that was close to 20. And let me get this right. That is the equivalent effect of the sugar in your bloodstream, the glucose, of 20 teaspoons of sugar. It's the same as literally eating 20 teaspoons or 20 cubes of sugar.
Yeah. And you're hungry an hour later.
Yeah. Or you could give him scrambled egg and some smoked salmon, or a cheese omelette.
Full of nutrition, full of the good stuff.
Which is nutritionally dense, loads of protein for a growing boy, and hardly any sugar.
Good
I hope that's what Tom's having now.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll be absolutely honest. I've got 5 kids at home. I've got 4 of them that completely get it. In fact, Tom's still, even though he was the one I buried in sugar, he's still the one, because we still have to have a loaf in the house. He's the one that will cheat more than most, but you can't preach too much, because then they go.
We found that with our own family.
We never did preach to them.
You mustn't force them. That's wrong, because then they become resentful. What happened in our family was leading by example, and then gradually, probably Edward was one of the last ones, our youngest son.
Yeah.
And then one day he'd seen what happened to other people, and he said, "I want to join in now."
Yeah.
We never forced him. One by one, they saw results elsewhere in the family and said, "I want, skin or weight loss or whatever."
They felt better and carried on.
And still spreading through the family now. Anyway, I think it's time for those questions.
Yeah, I mean, one of the side benefits I want to get at this show is because Jack's produced every single show. I don't need to tell him anything now. He can make his own decisions. Are you learning, Jack?
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
Good. Right. Here we go.
You're right, hold on.
Yeah. On the news, they're testing COVID patients in every way, but not finding out what their diets consist of. On the news, they're testing COVID patients in every way, but not finding out what their diets consist of. Well, that's a good point. We should be doing maybe a survey at the same time. Jen and David, what was that gadget called, please? I missed it.
Here it is.
It's here. We've got it.
Right, pulse, and then oximeter, and there it is, and you can. They
You
are
put
on
your-
Amazon.
And
We've
is
had
that-
relatives. We told relatives to buy them because it is quite a good way of seeing if your oxygen is low. So pulse oximeter.
And
And is
they're
that-
on Amazon.
Is that good for just now, or is there any other benefits outside of disease?
Well, it just does your heart rate and your oxygen. So generally, you wouldn't need one, but
You can use it for training. So I used to use it
when you're running.
if you're doing fitness training. You're sometimes interested in how far are you pushing your pulse. So I used to go running with this and see how I was.
But I guess a lot of people will have. There we go, pulse oximeter. Well done. It's people will have their pulse if they've got Apple Watches and things like that.
Yeah.
We haven't.
But this also measures the oxygen traveling around your blood.
That's the unique thing. I don't think any of the fitness watches do that. I might be wrong.
And what's the benefit of knowing how much? I mean, life is all about oxygen, is it not? So knowing how much oxygen in your blood is quite an important thing.
Well, it's particularly important in COVID, because one of the things that we really need to know is, are you breathing okay? And we didn't feel breathless, that's the point, and yet our oxygen was low. And you're able to, so as a doctor, it's really useful for me to know if your oxygen's dropping, because those are the people, some of whom do need to go to hospital if their oxygen gets low. So there we go. 96.
Thank you for telling us that. Is yours okay, by the way?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Good. Tracy says, I used to have one sugar cut half a spoon. Try that way. This was somebody earlier on saying, how do you stop putting sugar in your tea? Joe said, thanks, Tracy. I'm down to a level spoonful in a large cup, but tend to drink 6 to 10 cups a day. Try something else, Joe. But then I tell you what I would say though, Joe. If you're putting half a teaspoon in your cup, that's 5 teaspoons. If you had one small bowl of cornflakes, that's even worse. So if you are super good on everything else and you're not eating bread, pasta, rice, then it's not the end of the world, the amount of sugar you're putting in your tea. But try other things. Try something like what I've got this morning. I've got lime this morning and ginger. You don't need sugar when you change your tea around a little bit. Do you not think that obesity is just a marker for the underlying health issues in some cases, says Steve Oliver?
Yeah.
Well done, Steve Oliver. I agree. We blame obesity for everything. And yet, really, it's not obesity causing high blood pressure and all these other things. It's a poor diet which is causing the blood pressure, the diabetes, and the obesity. And it's a small point, but an important one. And it's interesting that I actually have people who improve their diet, improve their blood pressure and their diabetes, and don't lose weight.
Mm.
So there are people who can be overweight but healthy. So I think I've got 8 people who have lost no weight at all, who've really improved their diabetes. So it wasn't the obesity for them. It was not the obesity ruining their diabetic control. It was the diet, because the only thing that's changed is the diet, and they still weigh the same.
And is the link with high blood pressure and overweight and food, is that sort of, does it come down for 2 or 3 reasons? Does it come down because you've got less body to pump the blood out to? Does it come down because, I think you were saying once that as you eat less carbs, the amount of salt you're retaining drops as well, is that correct?
That's absolutely it. So this is something that's been known for 20 to 30 years. Absolutely. Just a few people knew it, but the papers were all there. So what's actually happening is, for people with diabetes, their high levels of insulin cause them to hoard salt, so their kidneys don't wash the salt out properly. So that salt causes them to retain fluid, helping to cause swollen ankles and various other things, but the salt puts up the blood pressure. And people who go low carb, one of the things they notice very soon is they wee loads. And that's because they're losing sodium, they're losing salt. And I notice in the first month of giving up sugar and starchy carbs, people's blood pressure improves. And I wrote it's been very successful. The paper that we wrote last year with a professor of cardiology from Glasgow University on this very subject. So cutting carbs and sugar, your insulin levels go down, you wee out salt. So there are people who were blaming salt for what the sugar did.
Yeah, they villainize the wrong little white fella. And it's so bizarre. In my 25 years while I was obese, I had no salt in the house whatsoever because somebody told me it was really unhealthy. And now it's back on. We're using it in nearly all the cooking because I actually find now that I need more salt.
You feel better.
Now I'm very low carb. Thank you. Great question, wasn't it? That was a really, really good question there. My feed keeps spinning at the same point. Yeah, we lost you all a bit earlier. I do apologise for that. Yesterday I mentioned my blood sugar has halved and I've lost 3.5 kg. I spoke to my GP this morning and she is over the moon and also said my mood sounds a lot better than before. I am a happy lady. This is Norma who, since watching the programme and just because of the programme, she thanked Jack. She thanked Jack personally yesterday. She's lost 3.5 kg just by watching the programme, which is
so good. And also, it's great that she mentions the mental health benefits because we've not mentioned that, but a lot of people get really significant improvements in their mood and they feel less anxious. Really, and there's a lot of studies on this that actually, this way of eating is more effective than taking antidepressants. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good for the brain as well.
Well done, Dee. In fact, I would actually do a plug for the podcast Jen and I did that we put live on Sunday. So if you're watching us currently on YouTube after the show, if you go down below Fat and Furious podcast series, the last one I did was with Jen, and we talked about her way of helping people to sort of get motivated with a template you call GRIN. Yep. Which was, see if I can remember them, it was setting goals, it was looking at the resources that you have around you, it was then looking at the incremental benefits as you move forward, and N for noticing. Is that right?
It worked.
Well done.
So yeah, I remembered it, GRIN. And if you want,
so easy to remember.
If you want to find out more about how to grin and how to put a smile back on your face during, post, or COVID or anything else, then go and look at the podcast that we recorded some time ago, but we only put it live this week. It's absolutely fantastic. Jackie says, if we sponsor in AA, we are told to get people eating sweets to abate the craving for beer, but I found my craving went the better I ate.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, this is a really important point for people because it's called sort of addiction interaction disorder, that actually it's the same pathways in the brain for sugar, alcohol and other addictive substances. So what does tend to happen, and we all know this, people give up smoking, they crave something else, they start eating sweets, and they nearly always put on weight after they give up smoking. Same with people who give up alcohol, they start craving sweet things, and it's just your reward center trying to get that dopamine hit back. So it's something to be really careful of. All of these things are addictive: sugar, alcohol, smoking, caffeine. So I've now, people I hope will be impressed to know, over the years of slowly given up all those things. So I now don't drink. I don't have caffeine. I don't have sugar. I never did smoke actually. So that was an easy one. But it just becomes easier actually. I'm actually a cold turkey fan. I think if you think something's doing you harm, just give it up for a while and see how you feel. Generally, after a couple of weeks, you don't miss it, and you notice that you feel better, and it's easy to sort of carry on then.
A great book on that subject is the guest speaker that you brought over from America to your conference last year, Dr. Robert Lustig. I'm trying to find his book, but it's called there we go, Hacking the American Mind. Anybody that's suffering with addiction of any type, this book is fantastic. Say again?
The British mind.
Well, he said, didn't he? Said, I don't know why he called it the American mind. It's anybody in the sort of westernized world where we are heavily advertised to buy happiness, from Happy Meal to Happy Hour. But actually what they're selling isn't happiness. They're selling the opposite to happiness, which is rewards and pleasure. Which long term lead to less happiness.
Leads
So
to problems, and also crowds out all the really good stuff in life that is about families and purpose, and all of these substances kind of, they hijack your brain so that you're focused on getting your next little hit instead of kind of looking at the bigger picture.
yeah, absolutely. Right, Norma says thank you to everybody. Spinning around, I can't get back to the show. Oh, these were from some time back. Let's quickly come back down. Ralph Ashunful. If this thing ever gets back up and running, I'll be grateful to know what the advice is for those with eating disorders. Like many type 2 diabetics, I am obsessed, but I also have an eating...
Obese.
Sorry, Jack. I'm dyslexic, by the way, everybody. Let me just go back to that. I'd be grateful to know what the advice is for those with eating disorders. Like many type 2 diabetics, I am obese, but I also have an eating disorder which has made fasting and cutting out food attempts impossible.
Yeah, so my particular interest is sugar addiction, and fasting isn't great actually for people who have that kind of food addiction problem, or a problematic relationship with food where they've tended to maybe starve themselves, but then maybe have binge problems. So my advice would be try not to fast. eat meals with protein and fat in. Obviously, avoid the sugar and the carbs, because those are the things that drive the addictive like behavior and the cravings and the kind of all the difficulties that people have with eating. And there's been a brilliant paper recently by someone called Agnes Ayrton, Ayrton, which is looking at this issue of sugar addiction in people with eating disorders. And I think my advice would definitely be, it's a bit like you kind of, you wouldn't tell an alcoholic to have a little bit of whiskey. It's quite important if you're addicted to carbs and sugar, that the first step is getting to the point of abstinence, because if you're a carb or sugar addict, you cannot moderate.
Yeah.
I'm in that category. I cannot moderate.
Yeah.
If I had a slice of that cheesecake that my dear mother-in-law used to make, I would end up having a lot. And it's not because I'm not a person without self-control. Generally, I'm quite an organised, self-controlled person. It's because that part of my brain has been hijacked and is just more powerful. That primitive part of your brain, the drives are more powerful than the thinking part. And however much you think, I don't want to eat that cheesecake, wow, you find your that robotic experience of watching your hand reaching for it all the time whilst actually thinking I don't want it. So I don't know if that helps the person.
Well, that's, I think it's brilliant advice, and I'd just add to that and say that a lot of the more you, it's like, don't think about the purple elephant. You just can't help thinking about the purple elephant. And also, I totally 100% agree with what you just said then, Jen, because I keep bashing the fasting drum, and all my friends go, I want to have a go. And I go, you can't have a go. It's like, and they went, well, it's not just exclusive to you. I go, no, you can't have a go. You can't have a go at fasting while you're still eating sugar, because it makes you hangry. You're addicted. You become hungry because you can't access your own body fat. So you can't fast until you can access your own body fat, and you can't access your own body fat until you cut right down on the carbs and the sugar. It's a two-step process, isn't it? Fasting only works when you're not a sugar machine.
Absolutely right. But in addition, for those small proportion of people who are proper sugar addicts, be really careful with fasting, because it can lead to then compensating, sort of binging after when you finish the fast, or it can sort of lead to other problems. So just, everybody's unique. Just be cautious. We don't eat breakfast. Actually, that's one thing we do. But then I went through a period of doing some longer fasts, but actually it made me a little bit more eating disordered, I would say. So I've stopped that.
Could I just direct the person who asked that question to @Agnes Ayrton on Twitter, because she's a consultant psychiatrist based in Oxford who's doing research into diet and eating disorders, and her Twitter feed is very interesting. So that's @Agnes Ayrton, and the Ayrton bit is spelt Ayton, a dedicated, clever doctor. I'm a great fan of Agnes. And her paper, the paper she wrote last year, I don't know whether you read it, Steve.
I haven't, no.
It's a most amazing paper. And she put her heart and soul. That must have taken her so much effort to write that paper. And in it are all the references, everything you could possibly want to know about eating disorders and
Actually,
food.
I've got another point, which is that people will know that we've been involved with diabetes.co.uk, and we helped them design their low carb program. And we did some research looking at sugar addiction in people with diabetes, because that research there's hardly anything on that. That's there's hardly any research on how many people with type 2 have this problem of sugar addiction. Anyway, it turned out to be quite a large proportion, but then we followed them up. They'd followed the low carb program. After about 12 weeks, then there was a significant drop in symptoms at that point. So again, it's this issue of, if you can get yourself off the sugar and carbs, then the cravings and the other symptoms of eating problems and food addiction they do improve.
That's great advice. And in fact, the next question here was from Tom Bennett, not my Tom Bennett, my son, but another Tom Bennett. I was watching Ken Berry, and he says even a sniff of sweet will set the brain off. I think the best thing is to go cold turkey for a few weeks until your taste buds readjust. And they do readjust, don't they?
Yeah,
they do.
Yeah, they really do.
I can taste the sugar now in milk. Probably, Steve, if you had it,
Wow.
it tastes sweet to me.
Wow.
Because your taste buds adjust. Or red wine is like Ribena now.
Yeah.
Joe says, hi Steve, I'm wary of sweeteners and would rather not use them. I did try coffee without sugar, it's worse than tea, but thanks, I will try it with cream. That's probably an idea.
Good idea.
Yeah, dash of cream, bit of sweetness.
Yeah.
Sweeteners, just a quick note on those. Definitely not for long-term use, because they have their own problems, and I think there's more and more research coming out about that. But think of it like methadone. If you're trying to get off sugar, it's probably better to have sweeteners in the short, medium term. So if you can't just go cold turkey and get rid of your sugar, go on to sweeteners, but then lessen those down. Took me quite a while to give up sweeteners, because I love that sweet flavour, but there is evidence that they keep the cravings going, and actually they can mess with your insulin in their own right. But yeah, so try and do it in a stepwise way.
Absolutely fantastic. Somebody was just saying, I wonder whether when we went off air earlier, that was YouTube censoring us. There's a lot of censoring going on at the moment with YouTube and Facebook, apparently, where if anybody mentions vitamin C, we all get struck off as if we're some sort of hippie going around saying something crazy, but there you go. So yeah, great questions there by everybody. Absolutely fantastic. One thing I'd like to just quickly say before we wrap up, with so many things in your own family that you quoted that sort of going low carb has helped. Obviously 2 of you reversed your diabetes, 6 people obviously had lost weight, hay fever, 2 people stopped suffering with hay fever, 2 people in your own family had dropped the high blood pressure, joints, eczema, snoring, acne, acid reflux, migraine, carpal tunnel syndrome. If somebody came along with a pill that said you could fix all of those, it would be worth a fortune.
Yeah. It's because they can't monetize it. That is the problem. That's why it's hard to get this information out, because nobody profits from saying give up sugar.
I think
apart from the person who does it.
The other thing, Steve, so many doctors, the paradigm, the way we work is we do tests on you to find out what's wrong, and then you expect me to give you a tablet to sort you, and I expect to do that. So that's just the way medicine's evolving, that what's wrong with you and what's the tablet.
Yeah.
Because these lifestyle things take a bit longer.
But also that's the whole medical training, isn't it? Isn't that the vast majority? Isn't that the vast majority of training is identify and then prescribe? Yeah,
I spent months and months and months trying to learn every drug in the British National Formulary. It's such hard work, and hardly any time on nutrition.
Yeah.
So I don't remember I think we had 2 lectures on nutrition that I remember, 2, but we had one at least once a week for years on pharmacology.
Yeah.
So the emphasis is on drugs, and there's a collusion, I think, between doctors who, that's what I'm trained to do, and patients expect a drug,
Yeah.
a pill for every ill.
Yeah.
And yet if we could just stand back and think about what is the true cause of illness.
Yeah.
Why does somebody have diabetes or high blood pressure?
Yeah.
Because really, are those tablets I'm giving you,
or snoring, or
why are you ill? Why are you really ill? What's the
Yeah.
cause? And I think that's what I'm trying to do now, and other doctors.
Yeah.
We're trying to think, why are you ill?
Yeah. Because you are what you eat at the end of the day, aren't you? You know, it is all about optimal nutrition, a little bit around lifestyle, a little bit about the environment we find ourselves in with
exercise.
toxins.
I wanted to say a thing about exercise, and that is so many of my patients come in apologizing and say, oh, I know I'm heavy. You know, it's because I can't exercise because of my sore knee, my sore back. I am told 10 times a week by people who feel guilty because they're heavy, and they say it's because I can't exercise. Exercise doesn't make a lot of difference to weight, but diet does. And the proper way to do it is lose your weight, and then you can exercise. And that's the way around it should go.
Yeah, and I preach that message all the time, because I was obese and still jogging, thinking that was the way to lose the weight, and damaging my knees. I've had a knee operation.
Yeah. I'm seeing that all the time. People, strong-willed people, they will drive themselves at the gym. They will run, and then they do damage. Such a shame, and particularly their knees is a common.
You should enjoy your exercise. It shouldn't be some kind of penance. It should be, you know, again, for your mental health, you know, and well-being.
And you didn't become obese because you didn't exercise. You don't exercise because you are obese. You know what I mean? You haven't got the energy to get out of the chair because you need the food that's coming in to feed, you know, a bigger body. And people think, oh, well, people that are big and fat like me when I was, oh, he must have a really slow metabolism. I probably didn't. I probably had a really fast one because I had to feed this big body that I'd got. It was just that I was eating so much I was overfed but undernourished the entire time. It's been fascinating having you on again. I mean, honestly, I could talk all day with you guys because I think it's...
We enjoy it.
I think, first of all, I think you're both beautiful human beings, but just the knowledge and the message you're trying to get out is fantastic. And I just can't wait till we can come up and see you all again and have dinner.
Won't that be nice?
Yes, we're missing you.
God bless you. Absolutely fantastic. And hopefully we'll get to see you all soon.
Yeah. See you soon.
Bye now.
Bye.
Thank you both. They are just two of the most lovely people you could ever wish to meet, Jen and David Unwin. I hope you learnt lots there. They mentioned a white paper. We will get that link up below for you all straight after the show, so you can go and find out the information they were talking about. And if you can, in between now and tomorrow's show, go make a donation to the food bank. If you could drop off any of the things, we'd all look that way, any things on the list here, that would be really, really appreciated. Thanks again for everybody's patience. We were off air for about 15 minutes in the middle of that segment there. So thank you for all being patient. If you like the show, please do give us the thumbs up. If you really like it, then why don't you subscribe to our channel, because we are putting lots of videos up around health tips and food tips at the moment. If you really, really, really like it, please go and share it by hitting the share button below with somebody that you dearly care about. The one thing that I forgot to mention during talking with David and Jen there was that when my dad was diagnosed with diabetes a couple of years ago, his doctor said to him, it's chronic, it's irreversible, and it's progressive. And that is 3 words that so many people believe about diabetes type 2. It's chronic, as in it's really bad for you. It's progressive, it's going to get worse, and so on and so forth. David and Jen, working with diabetes.co.uk, not the other one, because we don't like them, but I could go on a whole reason why another day to do with sponsorship and who they're sponsored by. But diabetes.co.uk, David and Jen work with them, and they have now helped over 100,000 people in our country put their diabetes in either remission or in reverse. And I think that hats off to them. Absolutely fantastic achievement. It is possible. You just got to know how to do it. So maybe go and have a look at diabetes.co.uk. Until tomorrow, stay safe, and we'll be back with you at 10 o'clock.
Just as big for the sugar. Woohoo!